All right, and welcome to another edition of Irish Rewind. As always, I'm Dalton, joined by George. George, how you doing tonight?
Doing great, Dalton. Busy week with Notre Dame sports.
Absolutely. Well, welcome everybody to our official post-combine show. Real quick before we hop into some of the results from this week's combine in Indianapolis, George, what's the latest on some of the other sports on campus?
Well, this past weekend, Notre Dame, despite losing on Saturday, splitting a pair of games with their friends there, they with Penn State, they moved into the top 16 in the polls and the United States hockey. They're 15, and USA Today they're ranked 16. So as of right now, they're still a bubble team, but they're on the right side looking in. So great game on Friday night. Come back, they won 5-4, tremendous game, and then they lost a heartbreaker 2-1 on Saturday night. So um, they're advancing. They play this coming weekend at Compton Family Heights. It's a 2 out of 3. So there's a possibility, folks, that yours truly will be at Compton Family Arena. Possibility of Friday night, Saturday night, and Sunday. Hoping for the sweep on Friday and Saturday.
What's the latest out of women's basketball?
The women have won their 6th consecutive ACC regular season title with the win on Sunday. They basically blew the doors off of Virginia. An amazing game. The highlight there, you would probably think we're going to talk about Enrique. No, we're talking about Jackie Young. Amazing game. Somewhere around 22 points, 10 rebounds, and 11 assists, some crazy number like that. So she is the first athlete. She's the first female basketball player to post a double-double, 2 double-doubles in the same season. So great game for Jackie Young, as I've been kind of boasting her, the past month. She's definitely taking control of this team.
Well, definitely best of luck to both of those teams as they prepare for a playoff run. Moving into the heart and soul of tonight's show or today's show, whenever you're listening to this, the NFL Combine took place this week in Indianapolis, and by my count, I believe we had 8 different guys from the Irish that competed in some way, fashion, or another down there. First
Yes,
off,
we did.
let's start with the guys who, to my knowledge, didn't run drills. You have Alex Bars, offensive lineman, obviously, and Tavon Coney.
Yep.
Bars did not compete in the drills for obvious reasons. He had the ACL and MCL injury. Positive news there is I'm hearing that he is cleared by all 32 NFL teams medically. So that's a big boost for him. I also saw reported that he interviewed with roughly 15 different teams, including the Indianapolis Colts while he was down there. You have the connection there of Quentin Nelson already being with the Colts, and then the Chicago Bears, who have Notre Dame's former offensive line coach.
It's interesting is because prior to coming into today's show, I went through what all the team's needs and wants were, and the Colts did not show a need for an offensive lineman with the team needs and wants that I had reviewed. So it's quite an interesting look there. And that's kind of the hardest part about when you try and go through and do these selections, right? Is you have teams that have their needs and wants, but on draft day, they could change their mind at the last minute and go a completely different direction.
Well, as someone, I dabble in a little bit of Colts coverage, being in Indiana, obviously. I think that Chris Ballard and the Colts are the kind of team, they're right at the plateau where they're going to take the best player available as long as it makes sense. Obviously they're not going to draft a quarterback, probably not going to draft a kicker, but if they find an offensive lineman like Bars, who they feel is an upgrade over somebody they already have, and it's a good quality value for whatever pick they're at, they're going to take somebody like Bars. Now, are they going to look to draft him first or in the first round or second round. I don't believe so. I think Alex Bars is still probably fourth or fifth round selection at this point, mainly because of his injury, obviously. And, let's not undersell it. This draft class is really strong on both sides of the ball up front. It was one of the best defensive lineman drafts we've seen in a long time. And guys like Dalton Reisner from Kansas State, um, Cody Ford from Oklahoma. I mean, these guys are very, very impressive. So, I think Bars goes in probably the fourth or fifth round.
Well, not that I want to bring up a guy from Michigan in this conversation, but look at Tom Brady. He was such a late pick, and and look what he's done. So you're where you fall to in the draft. I mean, that it affects you financially, but in the end, the dividends are is when you prove yourself on the field and you get those extra kick-ins and bonuses, and you're going to have a rookie contract, but after you get past that rookie contract, if you can survive it, the sky's the limit. So sometimes you got to go through the grind in order to get the reward even further down the road.
Well, moving in to another guy that we just mentioned, I can't talk. Tavon Coney. Sorry for everybody listening. Tavon Coney, he didn't participate in drills, and I think that this was really the final straw in placing him as the second best linebacker coming out of Notre Dame this season. I've heard that he interviewed well, but I was obviously at the Reese's Senior Bowl this year, and Drew Tranquill really took that week by storm and impressed a lot of people. And, there was a time when Coney was projected to go ahead of Tranquill, and it's kind of shifted now where Tranquill is really the big draw coming out of Notre Dame, and Coney seems to be fading a little bit into the later rounds.
Well, Dexter Lawrence participated, but he got injured. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I believe he pulled a hamstring in his second 40 attempt.
Yep. So, I mean, some of these guys just don't take that chance. I know the guys, they run different drills and stuff, but there has to be a reason why he didn't participate. But he is going to participate on his pro day on March 20th at Notre Dame.
Well, in all fairness, I don't think Coney is taking Austerin either, and I think it's been proven that enhanced supplements kind of weaken some of your ligaments and body parts. Not to throw any shade at anybody, but check out What is Austerin on sportsmediapass.com if you need more information on that. Selfless plug. So moving right along, we have probably my favorite player from the entire draft class, and that would be Jerry Tillery. This guy is a player who he's obviously a big guy. Ran a 4.9340, which is the second fastest for an interior defensive lineman at the combine. Put up 23 bench press reps. That's really something. I think he has 31-inch arms. So to be able to put up 23 different reps, that's pretty good. And I think that Tillery is vastly underrated going into this year's draft. It seems like the attention is mainly focused on Lawrence, Quinnen Williams from Alabama, a lot of these big name players, name brand players, so to speak. But I think Tillery is probably one of the top 2 or 3 interior defensive linemen in this class.
Or you can go with Terry Gillery, as he was nicknamed a few seasons ago by Brandon Wimbush. That still sticks in my head today is Terry Gillery. And these guys have some names, and they had some love for each other. That's for darn sure.
Well, George, another guy who was a consensus All-American and didn't have the best of combine performances was Julian Love. Obviously it's hard to argue with what you see on tape. Love, a very good cornerback when you watch his tape, but man, was he slow at the combine. Not a good look in the 40. Finished in the bottom half. I think he was the 24th fastest corner in this year's class of corners who ran the 40 in Indianapolis with a 4.54. some slow drills elsewhere. Also, what do you make of that, George?
His cone drill was 6.72. His 3-cone drill, he was ranked third with 6.72. So that's not so bad. You want to, of course, impress him with your speed. But
do you
who
worry
knows?
about him though at the NFL level with having to match up with some burners? Do you think that he can figure out a way to stay attached to those guys?
You know what? It's all in the day. It's like anything else. You could have something going on and it affects you in a different way. And the one day you don't want to have an off day is when you're at the combine down there in Indianapolis. So I don't think I'm too concerned about him going at the next level and being able to keep up. He's going to have to do some extra work, though. Absolutely do some extra work to make up for what happened, at the combine.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see how he performs on March 20th at Notre Dame. Maybe like you said, it's a scenario where he wasn't feeling well. Something's happened where his body's a little sore, what have you. Maybe he can come out and impress, a little bit more than what he did in Indianapolis.
I think in overall his body of work, once again, though, speaks for itself. The only situation is that the game's at a different speed at the next level, and any one of those guys who can really go out there and impress. I mean, it's kind of like an award ceremony. Yeah, you don't make the top 5 or you make the top 3 in one of these things, but in the end, you're just there. You're on a physical job interview, and you don't know what's running through these guys' heads.
Well, moving over to the offensive side of the ball, let's start with Alize Mack. What's your take on him coming out of the combine?
Number 2 in the bench press, number 22 reps, which is actually kind of surprising. Well, I'm not gonna say his is surprising with the 22 reps. He's a pretty strong guy. I guess I'll just say I'm very surprised at his season that he had. I had thought I kind of expected more out of him during the season, and he kind of fell off a little bit. I'm not sure what that's all about, but will he be able to perform at the next level? Absolutely. The only problem is, as the board looks, there's only a handful of teams looking for tight ends. So it'll be interesting to see how many tight ends there are out there, that are trying to vie for those handful of spots. And it'll definitely be an interesting draft day for him.
Well, I think Mack is in danger of actually going undrafted. This year's class at tight end is very strong with Noah Fant, T.J. Hawkinson out of Iowa. You have C.J. Conrad from Kentucky, Josh Oliver from San Jose State. These guys are very, very talented. And one of the knocks that seems to be glued to Mack is his inability to avoid drops. Obviously he put up really good numbers at the combine, but during the on-field portion of the event, he had some concerning drops, and that's something that those people who are NFL decision makers in attendance, they're not going to take kindly to, George.
No, they want you to have sticky fingers. They want that ball. They want that ball in place. They don't want because you could be catching that ball, and the next thing you know, you cough it up. It's a fumble. So I agree. You got to have sticky hands. You can't be dropping the ball in these crucial times of your biggest job interview of your life.
Well, another guy on the Notre Dame offense that scouts seem to be concerned with their ability to catch the ball is Dexter Williams. NFL teams seem to be moving towards the running back who can hurt you both in the running game and catching the ball out of the backfield. So obviously at the combine, no surprise to anybody who's watched Dexter all year or throughout his whole career really at Notre Dame, put up very good numbers athletically. He finished first overall among running backs in the broad jump, second in the 20-yard shuttle, and third in the 3-cone drill. So very, very good performances there. Like I said, the big 2 concerns with Williams seem to be, some of his past off the field escapades and his ability to catch the ball. He seems to have addressed some of those off the field concerns in interviews with teams. And he told the media when they asked about his past, he told them that it had awoken a sleeping giant, I think was his direct quote. So being around Dexter at Notre Dame and getting to interact with him on a weekly basis, I'm sure you probably feel the same, George. I'm not super worried about his past following him to the NFL. I think he has legitimately learned from it, and he's grown as a person and as a player.
Well, as a guy who as you know, I interviewed him after the Cotton Bowl. He understood his transgressions. He knew what he did. He took his punishment. He didn't complain. He didn't leave the team. He didn't become, as what they call, a cancer on the team when he was going through what he went through. He's truly, truly humbled. And sometimes I think how you handle those activities it says a lot for the person. And the things that he tried to do for this team when he did get his chance, he turned this team around. He made them from a one-dimensional team to a two-dimensional team. And let's be honest, I'm not perfect. You're not perfect. But in the end, Dex learned from his mistakes, and I don't think he's gonna carry that to the next level. The problem is the availability of teams looking for running backs, and that could be leading to your concern of him possibly going undrafted.
Well, no, I think Mac could go undrafted.
Oh, I'm sorry.
In the third round.
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes. So that it's very tough there, and the research that I did, the Chiefs were the only team that was looking for a running back, which I find very hard to believe. So
you'll notice, just like the Colts we talked about earlier, NFL teams are looking for whatever makes them better. And if there's a team out there that feels that Dex makes them better, regardless of who they have on their roster currently, they're going to take a chance on him, especially in the mid to later rounds.
Oh, absolutely. When the price isn't so high and the risk is low.
Well, the final guy that coming out of Notre Dame that attended the combine, Miles Boykin. And I'll be honest with you, George, I don't know what to think. We talked a couple weeks ago, and I thought Boykin, from what I was hearing, might go undrafted. People thought that he wasn't super athletic, just a big body college guy who made his living, kind of out physicalitying, bullying opposing cornerbacks.
Yeah.
And then the guy shows up to Indianapolis and just friggin' lights up the scoreboard. DK Metcalf was the media darling in the wide receiver group this week. But Boykin topped him in the vertical and broad jumps, the 20-yard shuttle, and the 3-cone drill.
He was number one in 3-cone drill.
Yeah, and he's an inch taller than Metcalf. So I guess to those people who thought that Boykin wasn't athletic, ha-ha to you. I think the one remaining concern for Boykin is if he can avoid being pressed at the line of scrimmage. That still seems to be a concern even after the combine. From what I've seen reported, is that teams are worried that if a physical corner or safety presses him at the line, it'll throw off his whole route timing.
Well, I need to go back to about the surprise. I think the best reaction that I saw on social media was from Reggie Brooks. Reggie's like, I didn't know he was that fast. And that's great coming from a guy like Reggie.
Well, and you've seen the viral social media video going around of the Notre Dame locker room watching Boykin run the 40-yard dash, running a 4.42. That's just, it's really absurd. That's a lot quicker than people, I think, realize. You see some of these speedsters that run down into the 4.3s, but a 4.42, that's something, especially for a guy who's 6'4". Now, obviously, he's not, I don't think, 1.6% body fat like Metcalf, which is a whole nother topic. I don't know how much you've looked into that, George, but according to doctors, you need at least 3% body fat, or you're at a health risk, like your body's dying. So, I guess in the grand scheme of things for Metcalf, the 1.6% body fat is more of a red flag than it is an impressive statistic.
Yeah, can't starve yourself to death. You want muscle, but you can't starve yourself either. That can definitely hurt your flexibility. You gotta have a little bit of meat on those bones to add a little more flex there.
Well, George, before we wrap up tell us about some of the Notre Dame players who are going to be in the draft but weren't at the combine.
Let's see here. You have Wisher at tight end. I know that he has been preparing for his pro day at Notre Dame on the 20th. I think he's a really great guy. I don't think he's going to get drafted. I think he's going to be he's going to be those undrafted free agents. I really want to see him get drafted, but sometimes those guys have been the ones that go. He's a true leader with his organization, Wish for Life. He's that locker room guy that you want. He's the guy that you want to be a leader. But there's like I said before, there's a handful of teams looking for tight ends. But it doesn't mean that he's going to go in as a tight end. There's probably some flexibility there to put him at some other, possibly put him at another spot. But I really want to see Wisher get drafted. But he'll probably become that unrestricted free agent post draft.
Undrafted free agent.
Undrafted free agent, yes. Then you have Sam Mustipher. He got snubbed along with Wisher. Eight guys going from one school is a tremendous number. I mean, everybody can't go. But Mustipher, he's just a great guy too as an offensive lineman. I mean, he definitely did his job this year. He was definitely a leader on that team. I think he has what it goes to, what it needs to be done at the next level. But it all depends on what these teams are looking for. So I think Mustipher, he's a borderline pick to get drafted. He's going to be a late 5th round draft pick, I think.
Well, you heard it here first, folks. There's the breakdown of Notre Dame players from the combine this week, and a couple who weren't at the combine. We'll be back next week to bring you more Notre Dame news and maybe preview the pro day coming up. So as always, thanks for listening. I'm Dalton. Say bye, George.
This is George, and thanks for tuning in, everybody.
Have a good night.
Go Irish.